morning. It's Tuesday, March 7th, the 6th day of Lent, and we're continuing our discussion of Paul's letter to the Romans. We're in the second chapter. Yesterday we read verses 1 through 16, which talked about the righteous judgment of God. And today we're beginning with verse 17, and we're going all the way through chapter 3, verse 8. My Bible calls this the Jews and the law. But if you call yourself a Jew and rely on the law and boast of your relation to God and know his will and determine what is best because you are instructed in the law, and if you are sure that you are a guide to the blind, a light to those who are in darkness, a corrector of the foolish, a teacher of children, having in the law the embodiment of knowledge and truth, you, then, that teach others, will you not teach yourself? While you preach against stealing, do you steal? You that forbid adultery, do you commit adultery? You that abhor idols, do you rob temples? You that boast in the law, do you dishonor God by breaking the law? For as it is written, the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. Circumcision indeed is of value if you obey the law, but if you break the law, your circumcision has become uncircumcision. So if those who are uncircumcised keep the requirements of the law, will not their uncircumcision be regarded as circumcision? Then those who are physically uncircumcised but keep the law will condemn you that have the written code and circumcision but break the law. For a person is not a Jew who is one outwardly, nor is true circumcision something external and physical. Rather, a person is a Jew who is one internally, and real circumcision is a matter of the heart. It is spiritual and not literal. Such a person receives praise not from others, but from God. Then what advantage has the Jew, and what is the value of circumcision? Much in every way. For in the first place, the Jews were entrusted with the oracles of God. What if some were unfaithful? Will their faithlessness nullify the faithfulness of God? By no means. Although everyone is a liar, let God be proved true. As it is written, so that you may be justified in your words and prevail in your judging. But if our injustice serves to confirm the justice of God, what should we say? That God is unjust to inflict wrath upon us? I speak in a human way. By no means. For then how could God judge the world? But if through my falsehood God's truthfulness abounds to his glory, why am I being condemned as a sinner? And why not say, as some people slander us by saying that we say, let us do evil that the good may come? Their condemnation is deserved. So Paul here this is still really early in the letter, and so this is all still kind of introductory stuff. And this relationship, this question about what the relationship is between the Jews and the law, capital L, their law, is one that Paul will continue to work on throughout the letter and will specifically focus on in chapters 9 through 11. So we're just getting little snippets here. Paul has railed against the Jews' willingness to condemn the Gentiles. He's lifted up against them and said, listen, you are doing the same stuff. And here he's continuing that same argument. He's adopting a style of argument here, written argument called the diatribe, where he has an imagined interlocutor, an imagined questioner, who's asking him these questions, kind of a straw man for him to continue his argument, and he's arguing against himself basically to further his point. And so the question of this section really is just what is the relationship between Jews and the law, and is there any value in being Jewish? Basically, he's pointing out the fact that those who follow the law but don't have the law, that is the Gentiles, if a Gentile is doing a good job following the teachings of God, then they are much more Jewish than a Jew who doesn't do those things, even though they have the external features of a Jew, that they are circumcised, that they follow, that they have the law, right? So it's better to, in other words, it's better to follow the law and not be under the law than to be under the law and not follow it, which makes some sense, right? And so Paul's going to go in the next couple sections. Paul's going to address this specifically, and his interlocutor, the imagined questioner, is going to start saying, well, what's the point? What's the point in being a Jew? And what's the point of circumcision? And we would expect Paul to say, as a Christian, we would expect Paul to say, well, there's really no benefit. It's all the law, and if you're following it or not following it, the condemnation is on you. But Paul's response surprises us. He says, much in every way, there's so many reasons to be for Jews to be thankful that they're Jewish. But he only gives us one in this section. He only gives us one reason. He says, Jews have been entrusted with the oracles of God. There in 3:2, the end of verse 3:2. The primary benefit is that they've been entrusted with the oracles of God. Jews were given the law as a gift, as a way to show that God loved them, that God was going to be faithful to them. God has kept his covenant promises. It's the Jews then who were unfaithful. And so then we come to our word of the day. This word, two words really happens a lot in Romans with this diatribe style. In chapter 3, verse 3. So what if some were unfaithful? Will their faithlessness nullify the faithfulness of God? And then right there at the beginning of verse 4, by no means. Paul does this a lot in Romans. It's actually kind of silly. The Greek word here is me geneta, and geneta means let it not be. So, but let it not be. It's a really forceful rejection. You could even add like a curse word in there and say like, not blank. No, it's not. Really forceful response against. So that's going to come up a couple times, and basically it's just him wanting to smack down these potential arguments that people are going to have. We'll get into some other great examples of it, but pay attention to that. The New Revised Standard Version calls it or translates it as by no means, and we'll find that. All right, so what's the thought of the day? How are we going to start this Tuesday, this first Tuesday in Lent? Well, I think that one of the main points of this section continues the theme of yesterday in that question of judgment. We begin this section with Paul saying, listen, you who say that you're walking in the way of light, you actually are walking in the way of darkness. And he quotes from the prophets in verse 24 of chapter 2. He says, listen, are you living such a life that the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you? That's Ezekiel and Isaiah there. One of the challenges of Christian living is that we hold ourselves to a certain standard, and we want to make sure that as we live in that way, that we aren't giving people, that by breaking the rules that we ourselves think that we live by, that we aren't giving others ammunition for railing against God. Part of the Christian life is to focus on ourselves, to focus on our own journey, and to remain faithful to a faithful God. Calling ourselves Christian is of no benefit to us, just like Paul says calling ourselves Jews is of no benefit to us if we aren't upholding the statutes that we ourselves claim. So as we go out into the world today, this Tuesday, think about the rules that you set for others and ask, are you setting those same rules for yourself? Is there a benefit to being a Christian for you beyond just saying, I'm a Christian? Enjoy this Tuesday. Have a happy and holy Lent, and we'll see you again tomorrow as we continue in chapter 3.